When we think of the God of the Old Testament, the image that usually comes to mind is of a single, all-powerful deity. But what if I told you that that wasn't always the case? We're about to uncover a surprising and much, much older portrait of the Hebrew God, all based on the amazing research of scholar Bernhard Lang. So think of this as a kind of archaeological dig through ancient texts, where we're searching for a lost worldview. And this really gets to the heart of it all. Here's the central question for us today. Was the God of the Bible once understood as part of a larger divine family? The evidence we're going to look at suggests the answer is a resounding yes. And honestly, that fact could completely change how you read some of the most familiar scriptures. Okay, so to begin this journey, we have to get our heads around a concept that was absolutely fundamental to the ancient world. It was considered the key to power, to legitimacy, to the entire cosmic order: wisdom. But here's the thing, this isn't wisdom as we think of it today, not even close. See, ancient Israel didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It was born during the Iron Age, but it was profoundly indebted to the much older cultures of the Bronze Age, especially from places like Mesopotamia and Egypt. And these older civilizations, they were built on what's called a sapiential culture, a whole society centered on a very specific kind of wisdom. So what exactly was this wisdom? Well, it wasn't just about being smart. This was esoteric wisdom, and it was seen as a divine gift, almost like a secret operating system for the entire universe. It was this specialized knowledge in statecraft, in administration, in scholarship that gave the ruling elite their authority. If you had this wisdom, it meant you had a direct line to the gods. And who held this incredible knowledge? It was a very, very exclusive club. We're talking about kings like Solomon, high priests, court prophets, and the whole administrative class of scribes and scholars. Royal courts would even bring in foreign magicians to get an edge. These were the people seen as the earthly representatives of the gods, the ultimate intermediaries between the divine and the human world. But how did they get it? How did a mere mortal connect with the divine world to receive this kind of incredible authority? Well, the answer lies in a powerful, initiatory experience that has its roots in humanity's oldest religious practices. And this is so crucial. This connection wasn't just some abstract idea or faith. It was an experience. Whether it happened in a mystical vision or a carefully staged temple ritual, the person seeking power had to actually undertake a journey to the heavens to come face to face with the divine source of all wisdom. This process, which actually has its origins in ancient shamanism, followed three core steps. First, there's an initiation, which involved a symbolic death to your old self. Second, a transformation, where you become a new kind of being with special powers. And finally, you receive a charisma, a divine gift of either power or celestial purity, directly from the Lord of Wisdom himself on his throne. But, not all heavenly journeys were created equal. The ancient sources show us two totally distinct tiers. The major charisma was for the king, and only the king. In his enthronement ritual, he wasn't just blessed, he was literally deified. He was transformed, declared a son of God, and took his place in the divine council. Prophets and priests, on the other hand, got the minor charisma. They were purified and made fit for their holy job, but they stayed human. All right, now that we understand the process of divine connection, it's time to meet the deities themselves. This is where we uncover that forgotten divine family that formed the whole backdrop for these heavenly trips, a pantheon that looks very, very different from later monotheism. And our key source of evidence for all of this comes from the ruins of the ancient Syrian city of Ugarit. The cuneiform tablets they dug up there back in the 1920s gave us this incredible window into the religious world that ancient Israel grew right out of. Now, at the very head of this pantheon was a figure named El. His name just literally means deity. He was the supreme creator god, this wise, bearded patriarch. You see him in depictions sitting enthroned, with his hand raised in a blessing. He's an administrator, a divine judge, not some young, aggressive warrior god. And his defining characteristic, the one that all the other gods acknowledged in the Ugaritic texts, was his supreme wisdom. This quote just captures it perfectly. When El speaks, his word establishes cosmic order and decides fate, not through brute force, but through his unmatched wisdom. So how does this all circle back to the Bible? Well, this exact structure, a wise, ruling Father God with a whole family of divine children, is actually present in early biblical texts if you just know where to look. In fact, one of his children is a goddess who plays a major role in the book of Proverbs, the goddess of wisdom. This passage from Proverbs actually gives a voice to Chokmah, or wisdom. She describes herself as the Creator God's daughter, like a little child playing right beside him as he laid the foundations of the earth. She was there at creation, and by watching him, she learned all the cosmic secrets. And this divine hierarchy is laid out plain as day in a passage from Deuteronomy that scholars are pretty sure reflects a much older polytheistic view. At the very top, you have the Most High, El Elyon, the supreme creator who owns the entire universe. And below him in rank are his kids, the sons of God. According to this text, El Elyon divides the nations of the world among them, and one of these sons, Yahweh, is appointed as the special guardian deity just for the nation of Israel. I mean, what a stunningly different picture, right? Now, you might be thinking a worldview like this would be completely scrubbed clean by later monotheistic editors, but it wasn't. The image of this wise, administrative high God and his heavenly court, it actually survived, often hidden in plain sight right within the Bible itself. Even after Yahweh ascended to become the one and only God, this older archetype of the supreme deity as a celestial judge presiding over a divine council, it was just too powerful to disappear. It kept resurfacing, and it did so most dramatically in the visions of the prophet Daniel. Before we jump into Daniel's vision, just look at this image for a second. This is King Hammurabi of Babylon receiving the law from the sun god Shamash, centuries before Daniel was even born. But pay close attention to the imagery. You've got the wise, bearded, enthroned God acting as a divine judge, handing down authority. This is the visual template for what Daniel sees. Now, let's look at the elements from Daniel's famous vision. An ancient one, an old man with white hair, takes his seat on a fiery throne. A heavenly court convenes, books of record, which are the tools of an administrator, are opened, and judgment is passed down on all the empires of the world. Does that sound at all familiar? The takeaway here is crystal clear. Daniel's Ancient One isn't some brand new revelation. It is a powerful, powerful echo of that original portrait of the high god, El. He's the divine patriarch, the ultimate administrator, the Lord of wisdom presiding over his heavenly council, an image that somehow managed to survive for thousands of years. And that really brings us to our final thought. Uncovering this lost portrait of God completely reframes how we might read these ancient texts. It leaves us with this really compelling question. If a story this foundational was preserved just beneath the surface all this time, how many other ancient stories are still out there, just waiting, hidden in plain sight?